Elder Law Planning Stories. I'm Gary Anderson, financial advisor, Anderson Advisors.
And I'm Kevin Tharp, elder law and estate planning attorney.
Kevin, in the previous segment, you were giving a real life story about what happened to your family and to you. And it really is what made you the person you are today as far as your professional career went. You are an estate planning and elder law attorney. And it's important, I think, that people understand that you really do need to talk to someone who really, really knows this. And when that's all you do, you're good at it. And this is something I know a lot of families have really been able to benefit from over the years.
Gary, I'm convinced that I am here today and doing what I'm doing today because I've been where many of our listeners have been. I've been in that situation when you're having to put a loved one in a nursing home. And I can tell you firsthand, it's emotionally overwhelming. It's devastating. It's scary. It's frightening. What is going to happen? Not only from a financial standpoint, but just from a standpoint of you're seeing your loved one. I can only imagine, and I'm grateful that my mother wasn't in a nursing home during COVID period. I can only imagine the pain of having to not be able to see my mother on a regular basis. Not be able to see your family, because that's such an important part of getting better in this nursing home circumstance that a lot of people just don't come out of the nursing home, and that's a big reason because of it. They just can't be around their family and see that family member and see that loved one. And I experienced it with my grandparents. I experienced it with my parents. I know what it's like with my wife's family and her grandparents. I've been where many people have been, and here's what I found universally. The stories are the same. People are being told you can't have anything if you go into a nursing home. People are being told you got to get rid of everything. And that's what I really want to focus on this next topic. You know, the gift that keeps on giving. Well, this is a situation that is a gift that never gives back. And this is a true story that I've heard repeated so many times that if I had a $10 for every time I've heard this story and heard someone tell me that a professional advisor, including attorneys, have told them they needed to do this, I'd be independently wealthy. And what is that story? That story is, in order to protect your assets, like your home, you've got to give up ownership. You've got to transfer them or gift them to your children. And people have gotten this in their mindset so much that they're trying to figure out a creative way of getting rid of their assets without giving up ownership completely. Oh, well, I can lend my kids money. I can sell my kids my home for $10, right? I see that all the time. I had an attorney recently tell a client that's what you can do. Sell your home to your kids for $10. Well, first of all, let me ask you this question. Is your home really worth $10?
I think it's worth more than that.
I think it's worth just a little bit more than that. But let me ask you this other question. And I know you love and trust your kids. I do. But do you really want to put everything you have financially in the hands of your children? What happens if something happens with them financially and they need to borrow or use the money? Maybe they need to pay off a mortgage because they're behind on their mortgage because they lost their job because of COVID. And now they have this access. It's their money, and yet you can't get it back.
It's mighty easy to write a check.
Absolutely. And you get it back. And sometimes when you give money, you don't get it back because it's being used by that individual. I heard people tell us all the time, well, we're going to put it in an account, put our names on it, and that way if mama needs the money, we'll use it. Well, why not just keep it in mama's name? If you're going to use it, just keep it in her name. Because if you transfer assets, there's nothing but negative consequences that can happen. There's tax problems. If I give my daughter too much money, I pay gift taxes. She could pay income taxes in the future, especially if I give her my home or land. I found one of the most common things that people want to protect is their home. Yet I hear the most common thing I hear people tell me is they're told to protect their home, they need to get it in their kids' names, and they better do it in the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. And they think, okay, that's how we're going to do it. That seems the most straightforward, simple thing to do.
You're listening to Truth in Planning, and today we're talking about elder law. planning stories. And Kevin, this is something that I think people a lot of times will do, and correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of times they don't get the right help for their loved ones because they think this concept exists that you have to give away everything before you get help. A lot of times people will deny the right type of help for their spouse or their parents because they think they've got to go through this process of helping them get rid of everything. And I think sometimes they don't get the right type of help because of that.
They don't. They end up disqualifying for themselves for help that they otherwise would have been qualified for. I can get help from Medicaid to pay for my nursing home as long as I keep ownership of my home. Why? Because my home is the type of asset that is protected. So if you get the first thing, if you understand the first thing, type of asset determines protection, then you're going to understand the second thing. I don't need to give up ownership while I'm living. And that includes not just putting it in your kids' names, which again is very common, but that also includes don't put it in an irrevocable trust. I've never understood that concept of you've got to protect your home by putting it into an irrevocable trust, because you know what irrevocable means? You give up ownership. And if you give up ownership, there is a potential penalty. And here's the thing I've learned personally as well as professionally. When it comes to this issue of needing long-term care, it can change on a dime. My mother was healthy, relatively healthy. She had some cognitive issues, but literally overnight, on Thanksgiving night, 2018, she fell and hit her head, massive bleeding on the brain. It caused her to have a stroke. Things changed in a dime. Next thing we know, we're looking at my mom being in a hospital, losing the ability to do everything like my grandfather. We had the experience of having to have her admitted to a nursing home and talk about how to pay for that nursing home at $10,000 a month. Thank goodness that my parents never gave up ownership over their assets. Now, my parents are the type that wouldn't do that anyway. Okay? It was hard enough to get them to give a Christmas gift. Now, when the grandkids came along, they became quite generous.
They were really Santa Claus.
That's right. They were really became Santa Claus. But, to their kids, well, that's a different story. That's a different story. But I'm grateful that my parents never gave up ownership and never followed that advice, because there were many people that suggested they needed to do it. My dad was even suggested by his bank to put my and my brother's names on his bank account to get to it and help him pay his bills in case he got sick. He and my mom got sick. Well, you know what happens when you do that? You give up ownership. And guess what? There are negative consequences. You take yourself out of potential eligibility.
Yeah, so when that other name is on there, you've just given up ownership.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter that both of your names are on there.
That's right.
You still give up ownership.
Yeah, if I had a mind to, I could go in there and withdraw every dime out of his bank account because my name is on it. Or if I got sued, my creditors can reach my father's bank account.
That's the traditional type of planning, though, Kevin. That's what people, again, you're told this time and time and time again. And you're out here, and you've been doing this for years, giving people information that's contrary to the traditional mindset that people have. And I think it's really important. I think one thing that people can do to make sure that they know how this applies to their specific situation and their family is to come in and talk to you. I think that the type of information they can get from you is priceless when it comes to making sure you don't make those types of mistakes.
It's peace of mind. It is at a time when things are very devastating. And I can tell you that my father and my brothers passed along to me that they had a peace of mind of knowing that there was somebody that can answer these questions that my dad had, like, are we going to lose everything we have because your mother's in the nursing home? Because $10,000 a month is quite expensive.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that I know that I'm called to do this is because I'm here as a resource. I'm here to help you because I've been where you've been, and I understand that. And that's a huge experience. And I think that really, honestly, Gary, makes the difference between me and other attorneys.
Kevin, give me your information, and maybe they want to come in and talk to you.
866-253-6994 or kevintharp.com.
You've been listening to Truth in Planning on North Georgia's News Talk AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.